Welcome to Fortress of Faith with Tom Wallace, calling North America to repentance and revival.
Well, I want to return back to the subject what we were talking about yesterday. There's been a lot of talk about the shooter in D.C., the Muslim who gunned down two of our soldiers there in Washington, D.C. There's some other things that I didn't get the time to talk about yesterday because there's a lot of subject of how do these people get radicalized? How do you radicalize a Muslim? And how's that being done here in America? Why is this happening? And so I want to weigh in on that subject today. Hope you'll stay with us. And now, of course, my opinions are coming from my background. I was a missionary overseas, and I found myself in a large Muslim community. And these were English-speaking Muslims who had immigrated into England, many of them from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, many of them very well, highly educated. In fact, the highest educated or the best English-speaking Muslims who are apologists for Islam are coming out of India. Some of these people were the ones I rubbed shoulders with and kind of cut my teeth with on the subject of Islam. And I discovered early in my efforts trying to evangelize Muslims that things I was reading from non-Muslims wasn't helping me. And so I had to go deeper. And so I studied Islam the way an imam would. And so, I've got a bit of a background on this subject. And so let me share some thoughts with you. Now, first of all, this shooter, Rahmanullah, is a very popular name coming. If you come from Afghanistan, it's popular. It's like over here we call people John and Michael, and it's kind of, a popular name. But Rahman, what does that mean? Well, it's one of the 99 names of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Rahman means the most merciful, and Ullah means of Allah. Put it together, and you have the mercy of Allah, or the compassion of Allah, of God. And so when a parent names their child that, their hopes are that this child would live under the mercy of God, the mercy of Allah. Every chapter in the Quran, except for one, every chapter begins with the Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim. What does that mean? Well, it simply means, if we translate that, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. So again, Rahman. And so, this shooter was born a Muslim, raised a Muslim, fought with America in Afghanistan as a Muslim against Muslims. But nevertheless, he joined with our team and fought, as far as we know, valiantly. He was part of a special forces over there, and we did right by bringing him and others to America. We promised them, side with us, and we'll look after you. If we left them, when we leave and we left them there, it would be a death sentence, definitely. Taliban, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda would seek them out and kill them, their family, and anyone close to them. And so when we make these alliances with these people, we had the right to bring them back. And he was vetted. But the CIA has told us that, well, although he was vetted as a soldier, we really didn't look into the idea of how he would do as a resident here in our country. So what turned south? I mean, it seemed like this guy was on our team, on our side. And wouldn't you think that they ought to be thankful and grateful for the opportunity to, instead of living in the cesspool of the country that they were in, and I don't mean to be derogatory by that statement, but let's face it, living in countries like Afghanistan, you have to scratch out a very poor existence just to get by. Coming to live in America is the biggest dream anyone in the world could really have. The opportunities that are here, the conveniences, the wealth, the standard of living is second to none. And so a ticket to live in America, very appealing. Now, the family did inform authorities, apparently, this is what we're hearing, that he was suffering from PTSD from his time in war, and sadly, many do. It's a very bitter thing to go through war. Very difficult to handle that, I can only imagine. But I want to weigh in on this, and I've talked about this for a long, long, long time. I wish people in authority in our country would start listening to people like me and others like me that understand it, that have a background similar to mine, because we see some dangers. We really do. When Muslims come to our country, you need to understand, while they're in their country as a Muslim, they're just like everyone else. No one ever asked him while he was in Afghanistan, "Why are you a Muslim?" You don't get asked that question when you're overseas in a Muslim land. And if you're a Muslim, no one's going to ask you, why are you living as a Muslim? In fact, the truth is, they really don't teach them very, very well. They're poorly taught about their faith and their ways and their doctrines, and they know very, very little. They really do. It's kind of shocking how little they know. But let's face it, to be a Muslim over in places like that is just a cultural thing. They're just born into it. It's similar to how it is here in America. I mean, let's face it, most Americans will tell you, I'm a Christian and I love Jesus. They haven't the foggiest of what salvation is, how to get saved, who really Jesus is, and the doctrines of the Bible. They've never gone to church, maybe, and they may have a Bible somewhere in their home. I'm pretty sure they do somewhere, but they probably couldn't even tell you where, turn, to the book of Deuteronomy, or turn to the book of Leviticus, or Job, or, something like that. They've heard of these passages, but they wouldn't know where they're located, perhaps. The average Christian knows very little, or so-called Christian. It's a part of their culture. And so when Muslims come over here, they come now to America, to a Christian nation, and they finally buddy up around some people who they can start understanding the language a little bit now. And they start getting asked a question, why are you a Muslim? Can you explain to me why you believe what you believe? And when they start getting asked questions like that, they start investigating. Well, why am I a Muslim? Why do I believe? I believe my faith is better than yours, that we're right and you're wrong. But how do I explain that? And so that starts a journey. And so most of these immigrants come over here, and if we don't reach out to them, I call this the 2-year window. We pretty much have 2 years to start working on a Muslim when he comes into the country, and to bring him to Christ. If we don't, they're likely going to start a journey during that time, 2 to 3 years, and they will start a journey on why do they believe what they believe. And if we don't get to them before that, we may risk losing them forever for an opportunity to bring them to Christ. Because one of two things are going to happen when they start studying about the religion. And both things that will happen to them will either drive them further away from Christianity. And the first thing that will happen to them, it will either radicalize them. I don't like that word, though. I hate that word. I don't, but I use it only for the purpose that you'll understand what I'm saying, because this is what we often say. They become more devoted to their faith. They now start seeing their religion, and they start studying it, and now they start falling into it. Or it will make them a full agnostic or even atheist. If that's God, I don't want anything to do with it. And if that's religion, forget it. I'm just going to be secular. I like the secular part. That's kind of what I was even as a Muslim, but now I won't tell people I'm leaving Islam, but I'm not practicing it, don't care to. I don't care to practice any religion. So it'll either bring them into agnosticism or atheism, or it'll bring them into the fold of Islam. And so when they come here, oddly enough, they now become closer to their faith than they ever were before. That's a very strong chance. And so how do they get radicalized? Simply because they start studying their faith. And when they start studying their faith, they're going to realize that this version of Islam that they keep talking about, that Islam is a religion of peace. Well, if they start studying Islam properly, they realize that's not true. Muhammad was a violent man. Muhammad killed the infidel. Muhammad was commanded to kill the infidel. Allah commanded it. And Muhammad commanded the faithful to do the same. Muhammad's the great exemplar. He's the one that we follow. Let me just give you some proof of what I'm talking about. Now, I learned a long time ago, if I go straight to the Quran and start quoting the Quran, Muslims don't like that because I'm quoting stuff that really reveals about their faith. So they got to defend something that I've said that they don't like to hear. And so they'll say, oh, you're taking that verse out of context. You're quoting a verse that's out of context. You're twisting this, not making it sound like it really, really is. And so what I do, I like to quote the Reliance of the Traveler. This is the Sharia law book. This is the highest scholarship of Islam. And they wrote what Muhammad said and commanded, what Allah said and commanded. And they wrote it all down in a code book, in a law book. And when you quote them, and it will say the very same thing that I would do, quote the same verses. But when they quote these verses, they will never say these scholars are taking it out of context. But let me just read just a little bit out of the Sharia law book. When it comes to the subject of jihad, jihad means to struggle against evil. There's the evil of your own body, your own life, and your own mind, and then there's the evil of sin and the evil that's in the world. And so struggling against evil is what jihad is. It says jihad means to war against non-Muslims. It is etymologically derived from the word mujahada, signifying warfare to establish the religion. Then it gets into the lesser jihad and the greater jihad. The lesser jihad is the war against the non-Muslim. The greater jihad is the jihad of evil in your mind and in your body and soul and so on there. But then it goes down to breaking this down further. It says fighting is prescribed for you. Then it lists some verses out of the Quran. Chapter 2, verse 216, chapter 4, verse 89, chapter 9, verse 36, chapter 9, verse 29. Then it will quote the prophet. So first it will quote Allah by quoting the Quran. Then it will quote what the prophet said. I have been commanded to fight people until they testify that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and perform the prayer and pay zakah. If they say it, they have saved their blood and possessions from me. I could go on and on and on, but I'm out of time. But my point is this. How do they get radicalized? They simply start studying Islam, and they become honest about it. If I'm going to be a Muslim, I should hate the non-Muslim. If you're a Christian, I should hate you. If you're a Christian nation, I should despise you and destroy you. And now they're here to destroy us from within. I hope that puts some fear in your heart. Let's think about that and talk more about that in the future. Join us again tomorrow at the corner of Truth and Courage. God bless you.